Guys, it is a big day in ROG Ally land. We have a big new update that just dropped, and we are almost exactly 6 months into the lifespan of the Ally. I think we're 2 weeks away from 6 months. Is my math right there, Jake?
That is correct.
Awesome. So what we wanted to do today is go through this new update because there is a lot of stuff in here, and also just talk about kind of everything we've added since launch, because there have been so many new features, little tweaks, feedback that we've taken from you guys, the community, and put into the Ally since it launched in June. And man, I am just so pumped about it. So let's take a little tour here, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So I've got my Ally hooked in here. The big thing that dropped today is gyroscope support. So this has been something that people have been asking for a while now. We heard you guys. We were working on it. It was coming. We just had to get it just right. So for those of you that don't know what gyroscope is for this, the idea is that, actually, it's not there. Instead of just using the sticks to aim, you could actually tilt the device and use that for slightly more precise aiming. This is something, did we just crash? No, we didn't. It was just me. This is something that has been on a few other handhelds, and people have really come to like it, especially in first-person shooters. So we added it to the Ally, and you can find it in the game library. So you're not going to find it in the control mode settings because you're going to want to implement this on a game-by-game basis, and it's going to be a little bit different for every game. So let's say I want to set it up in Destiny 2 here. That's a good example. So I would highlight Destiny 2, and I would press X on the Ally to bring up the game profile. This is where you can customize the controls for that specific game only. Head down to Gyro. Someone is saying in chat, it's pronounced Gyro. And it's a delicious
Only
wrap.
if that's the sandwich you want, yeah. If that qualifies as a sandwich, but that's a whole other debate.
That is, yeah, that's a different episode of Pulse. So you can have the gyroscope act as a mouse or as one of the sticks. So for example, if you're using it for aiming, you'll probably do the mouse or the right stick. So you would select that, and then you have a whole bunch of settings that you can go through to tweak for that specific game. For example, you can enable the gyro with a specific button. So if you only want the gyro to be active when you are aiming down sights, you could use the left trigger, for example. And then when you aim down sights, you can use the gyro to really dial in your aim. You could also use the M1 or M2 buttons or something like that. And then you've got a whole bunch of settings here you can play with for dead zone and things like that, depending on the game. So to get this, you need to update Armoury Crate. You need to also update the microcontroller unit, which is going to be available in Armoury Crate's updates. And then you're going to want to set the control mode to auto. So in Command Center here, if you have control mode set to gamepad or desktop, gyro isn't going to work. It's got to be set to auto. So do that, and you should be good to go. The other thing is that here in the calibration menu, if you need to calibrate the gyroscope, you can do so. Mine seemed to work fine out of the box, but if you want to calibrate it there, you can. This is also a new feature that we added, not in this update, but in a recent update, the ability to calibrate your sticks and your triggers. So we've shown this off in a previous episode, but in case you're just now catching up on everything we've added, I do want to show this off. To calibrate, you just enter one of these, press A to start calibration, read the instructions. It says hold the Ally stationary. Once you've done that and you see that check mark, then you can press and hold down the trigger. You'll see mine doesn't actually press down all the way. And so what this is doing is saying, okay, that level there down by the bottom, that is what constitutes 100% on my Ally, because every Ally has just a little bit of variation. And that means I'm going to get really, really precise trigger functionality, which is great for racing games and things like that. I play a lot of Forza Horizon on this, so it's a it's a necessary thing to do. Okay, so that is one of the big things we added, gyro support. Here's another thing we added that I know we kind of started adding this stuff with the last update, but people wanted more control over the sensitivity of the joysticks. This has been one of the things that we've been hearing since day one. So a few weeks ago, we added this anti-dead zone slider down here. Wii U. That's kind of almost like a brute force sensitivity method, right? It just increases the sensitivity of the joystick, but we always knew that we wanted to do more than that as well. So we added this response curve to both the left and right joysticks in the controller configuration. This is actually very similar to what we have on our Raikiri controller. We've had this in Armoury Crate for a while for the controller. It's a similar thing. So you can tap and drag these to make the joystick a little bit more sensitive in the early part of the curve. If you want it to, I know a lot of people like it to be kind of really sensitive in that early part. So your character starts moving as soon as you kind of touch the stick. You can also make it less sensitive, but you get to adjust that whole curve however you want.
Huge. This is a huge amount of flexibility and customization for user preference and everything, and it helps combat, like you said, maybe each stick is a little bit different in terms of how the dead zone persists on one stick from the next. This is going to make everything a level playing field.
Yep, absolutely. And that's we love giving people the ability to kind of tweak and customize to their preferences. So that is another big feature that people have been asking for in one way or another. If you just want to use that anti-dead zone slider just to kind of increase the sensitivity and be done with it, you can do that. But the best way, I think, is going to be to use that curve sensitivity adjustment. You may have to play with it a bit more to really dial it in, but it's going to be worth it when you're done. And again, you can adjust that on a per game basis, I believe, if you want. I can double check that, but yeah, there you go. Per game basis if you go into the game profile. Okay, next big feature. This was also a highly requested feature. If you head into the operating mode settings and you go down to Eco Assist, there is a new feature here called CPU Boost. Now, the default behavior of a computer processor in the modern age is that when it needs a little bit of extra power, it'll kind of boost itself up for short periods of time. But we have had people requesting the ability to turn this off to save power, or to dial down the heat, or to get more consistent results when you're trying to benchmark something. That's something where sometimes CPU boost can, if you run a benchmark a bunch of times, it might be boosting more in that first set of benchmarks, and you want an apples to apples comparison, especially if you're a reviewer. So you now have the ability to turn that off. Feel free to play with that how you see fit and see how it affects your performance. Another thing I want to call out here, a lot of people think that the extreme standby mode listed in the same menu is new. That is actually not new. I think that was a misunderstanding of something that someone else said. The extreme standby mode has been there since basically launch, as far as I know. The modern standby assistant and extreme standby mode are both on by default, and we do recommend you keep that way. It helps ensure that your ally uses as little power as possible when it's sleeping or turned off. Those are some features that we implemented to just try and make sure that you keep that battery life when you aren't using the ally. Okay, big mouthful. Those are the biggest updates from this particular update. A few other things that just kind of make the ally a bit easier to use, in my opinion. So we added, AMD has a lot of really nice options in its Adrenaline software. And I was in that menu already. Here we go. We added them to Armoury Crate. So we've always had like the RIS, Radeon Image Sharpening. That was in Command Center. RSR was in the Command Center. But not all of these features were available in Armoury Crate. You had to go into AMD Software to use them. And that's fine. But it is nice to be able to just, the less you have to leave Armoury Crate, the better. We want this to be a really seamless experience. So we added a bunch of those features here. You'll also notice that you have a memory assigned to GPU feature up here that allows you to adjust how much of your system RAM is allocated to video RAM. By default, it's 4 gigabytes. And this feature has been there since launch as well, but we have since added more settings here. That was added in a previous update, but again, if you haven't been paying attention in the past 6 months, you can now go to, I like 6 gigabytes personally. I think that's a good sweet spot. Some people like it elsewhere. You have the option to kind of play with that as you see fit. Okay, here's one. This is, oh, sorry. First, before I do that, I'm excited about this one. The RealTime Monitor. If you are the kind of person that likes to watch your FPS like a hawk, we've always had a RealTime Monitor up here, and it was usually this kind of square with a bunch of information. If you want it to be smaller and provide a little bit less information, just the important stuff, we now have a few different options. So as you cycle through that in Command Center, you'll get this minimal one that just shows you your FPS and battery.
That's
and
huge.
The time.
The battery and the FPS and the time. It's all you need. It's everything you want right there.
FPS and battery are the things I want to keep an eye on the most, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And when I don't want it covering up like the UI in the game. That's what I'm going to go with. This is also nice. That gives you a little bit more information. So if you want to know how much of your CPU and GPU is being used, that can be handy for when you're tweaking settings. You want to figure out if your game is CPU bound or GPU bound and what settings you might need to tweak to get better performance. That is really useful. It's not something that I necessarily need when I'm like just gaming.
It's good to have the option though.
When I'm first launching a game and tweaking those settings, it's handy. And then here's the full version, which is nice. And this actually now has an FPS graph in it too, which isn't running right now because I'm not running a game, but you get the idea. So that's a nice little improvement. We've had some people requesting that as well. This next one has been requested so much, and this is kind of a funny story. So we have a new keyboard shortcuts section here in the Armoury Crate settings. This came up because a lot of people were using the Ally docked to a TV or monitor and wanted a way to bring up the command center when they weren't using the Ally, and because this is a special button to bring up the command center. Right. So when you're using an external keyboard, how do you bring up the command center? We had a keyboard shortcut in there, but it wasn't like publicized. It was for debugging, and someone figured it out, and everyone was using it. When we found out that it was interfering with some other keyboard functionalities, and I think like for Polish language users, I think it was Polish. It was for a specific region. That particular shortcut was interfering with a shortcut that they used a lot for their keyboard, and so we removed it. And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I need that keyboard shortcut back," which makes a lot of sense. So we added it back in, but now it's customizable. So you now have the ability to specify your own keyboard shortcut for opening Armoury Crate and opening the command center, basically mapping it to those two buttons on the Ally. So that's a really nice addition that I'm happy to have back. And I'm sure docked mode XG mobile users are going to be really, really happy to have that back as well.
Yeah, that's huge.
Small thing, we did add a tutorial video, which you can find in the content section over here in our tutorials. It'll also launch the first time you start Armoury Crate. Sorry, it was in guided tour, not tutorials. That's something that when you're a new user, it'll pop up automatically and kind of guide you through Armoury Crate. That's just a handy feature. And you can also view it on our YouTube channel, the YouTube channel you're probably watching this on right now. So those are the big features added in this particular update. But this is far from the only update we have released. We have been releasing updates almost like clockwork since this thing launched. And we have been taking so much user feedback into account when we decide what updates get pushed out, what gets prioritized. We've had so many requests, and we love that people are so passionate about the Ally that they're asking for these specific things. That's a good problem to have, right? That you have so many feature requests because people love your device so much. So I wanted to quickly mention a few of the other things that we've added since launch. We've talked about some of this on Pulse before. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. We've added a number of options to the controller settings, including hold to repeat functionality. So if you want to rapid fire when you hold down the A button or something like that, that's here. Like I said, we added that calibration and the anti-dead zone slider. We also added a lot of little stuff, just more useful UI stuff to Armoury Crate and Command Center. So like this battery and the Wi-Fi settings in Command Center, we added that because that was a common request. We also add, in the current system time in Armoury Crate. Yeah, that's useful. Always got to know what time it is so you know to stop gaming at 2 a.m. and go to sleep. We also added more options in the Command Center. So
just in general.
This is the default, but if you go into the settings here, you can add new stuff, and there's so much new stuff you can add now. We added that CPU boost feature I talked about earlier. You can toggle that in Command Center now if you add it. There's also an end task button, which basically Alt F4s you out of the game you're playing or whatever.
Some games are hard to find the exit on a controller, like some PC games are.
Or so sometimes it just takes forever to get back to the menu to exit.
So it's basically an Alt F4, right? It's nice.
I've never been one to Alt F4 out, but everyone requested this so much that I was like, oh yeah, I should be doing that more often. So now
I do it all the time.
I know. So you also see a resolution option here. This can now toggle. It used to just toggle between 1080p and 720p. Now it will also toggle to 900p. This was something that users discovered, that this 900p resolution, kind of in between 1080 and 720, looked better than 720, but performed a little bit better than 1080, provided this really good sweet spot for performance and visuals. Now, so we added support for it to the Ally directly. I personally don't know if I would I don't change the resolution. So I don't use this command center function. I don't change the resolution of the Ally itself. I always leave the Ally system running at 1080p. And then I will use RSR if I want to run at 900p. I'll change the game to 900p resolution, turn on RSR, and let it scale up. I find that is going to look a little bit better than letting the display just kind of scale it up using whatever algorithm it has. The RSR solution is going to be a little bit more intelligent, but you can do it however you want to do it. If you just want to have that quick button in the command center, that is handy. It's fewer taps to do, but I would also recommend, if you want to scale down to 900p or 720p, to look at FSR and RSR as options as well. The performance is going to be a little bit different between each, but the graphical quality is also going to be a little bit different between each. So play with that and find what works best for you.
I feel like, you know, just in general, some of the biggest improvements we've seen with Armoury Crate is just allowing you to do more and live more and spend more of your time on the Ally in Armoury Crate. And the game library 100%. Is the heart of that. And the game library is where we're seeing a lot of the big improvements over the past 6 months.
Yeah, we definitely have added, you know, it's a little bit smoother when you're adding or removing games. It'll be a little bit better about removing them once you've uninstalled a game that you're no longer playing, things like that. You know, we've improved some of the art grabbing and stuff like that because, yeah, you know, it's amazing that this thing has windows underneath because it means you can do anything and you can play any game, right? That's the whole idea. Play all your games. But you know, on a device like this, you want it to feel seamless. You want to just be able to do everything in this kind of console-like interface. So you can dig down into Windows when you want, but the more that we can put into Armoury Crate so that you don't have to, the better, I see. That's where you get kind of the best of both worlds. Since launch, we have also added wider compatibility with USB-C docks. So if you, for those that don't know, when you plug in the Ally with the official adapter, that turbo mode, which is usually 25 watts, gets bumped up to 30 watts, which gives you a few extra FPS. Pretty nice when you're playing plugged in. But we found that when certain third-party docks, when you tried to plug in, they would use like just a couple watts of power and prevent the Ally from going into that 30-watt mode. So we have better compatibility with that now. You still usually will need to use a higher wattage adapter, like 100 watts, in order to get that to work because that dock is going to draw a little bit of power, but it should work better amongst more brands of USB-C dock now. We also, this is what I know you and I were both talking about in Taiwan. The display can go darker. We made the display even dimmer.
My flights are saved.
Obviously, we talk about how great the brightness is on this machine. 500 nits is great for a device like this. And when you're playing outside or in a really, really well-lit room, like my living room has really big windows, you want high brightness.
Yeah.
But you also want really low brightness for when you're on a plane on a cross-country trip and they turn off all the lights. You don't want to be blinding the person next to you or like blinding your spouse when you're playing in bed. So the dimmer you can make that device, the better. And we made it go a little bit dimmer.
That was another big request for a lot of people that might play in bed next to their spouse or on flights, etc. So,
yep, for sure. And of course, we've released multiple stability updates, bug fixes, GPU drivers to support new games like Starfield, all kinds of stuff like that. So, and by the way, this is a big 6-month update, right? We're like giving you the current status of the Ally 6 months later. We're not done. None of this means we are done. Okay, this isn't like, all right, hit 6 months, we got the features out. All right, let's kick back, let's go work on something. Like, no, the Ally, we're still pushing out updates for this thing. We are still taking your feedback into account. I know that these are a lot of the biggest requests that we've had over the past 6 months, so I'm happy to like kind of close the book on a lot of this stuff because I wanted a lot of it too, right? But this does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that we are done supporting the Ally. So don't think that for a second. I already know some of you were thinking it in your head. The other thing that happened in the past 6 months since the launch of the Ally is that we launched the Z1 variant of the Ally. So, and both versions are discounted right now at Best Buy. So I wanted to call this out briefly. Cyber Monday, Black Friday may be over, but the Z1 Extreme version of the Ally is $100 off right now at Best Buy, $599, which when this came out, we thought $699 was a crazy price.
Right.
Like you and I couldn't believe
when they
how
told
good
us
the price was on this thing.
The price, when they first were like deciding it, we're like, no, there's no way you're going to keep it at that price. We thought for sure it was going to be sold for more than this.
I was like, 700, no way, this thing's too good. 600, that's a killer deal. But here's what's even crazier. The Z1 version, a little bit less powerful, Great if you're playing indie games, retro games, or you just aren't playing super high refresh rate stuff for your AAA. $399.
Yeah.
$399? Are you kidding me?
If you're trying to grind Metroidvania, games like Stardew, etc., like this is the best deal you can get, period.
And I'll tell you, it's funny. I bought this, or I didn't buy it. I would have bought this for AAA games. I wanted this for AAA games, and I have played a lot of AAA games on it. But I find myself more and more playing like the Metroidvania style stuff because it's just so perfect for the Ally. I still would get, because I'm playing AAA games and I want that high refresh, Z1 Extreme is great. But man, that Z1 for $400, that's hard to turn down, especially if that's what you're spending most of your time doing. And by the way, that's not even taking into account open box deals at Best Buy, which are even cheaper and follow that price. So as that price has dropped, so have the open boxes if you really want to get a deal.
So we just got to clarify, it is November 30th during this sale right now. We don't know how long the sale lasts. So if you want to take advantage, it could end today. We don't know. We actually do not know.
I actually don't know. I had to check this right before stream started to make sure it was still there before I mentioned it. The other small discount I wanted to mention, the Cetro True wireless earbuds are $10 off at Best Buy. Wait. Oh, those are $20 off at Best Buy. Okay, so they're $20 off at Best Buy. These are the perfect companion to the Ally because they can do low latency Bluetooth, not something a lot of Bluetooth headphones can do. So you can obviously wire up your headphones to the Ally and you'll get zero latency. But for wireless play, which I really like, especially on a plane, these have noise canceling, and you'll get low latency Bluetooth with the Ally, which is just perfect. And the white ones match the Ally. So
aesthetics.
Yeah. So if you have not picked up an Ally yet, or you've got a friend or relative for whom you think it might be a good holiday gift or whatever, now is a killer time to pick one up. So head over to bestbuy.com, whatever, grab one before those prices change, because we actually don't know what's going to happen there. That is all we have for our 6-month update today. Guys, reminder that we stream ROG Pulse live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on both Twitch and YouTube. If you watch live, there's lots more content. The show's not done right now. It's going to end on the YouTube. If you're watching YouTube later on, the show's about to end. But when we stream live, we have a whole bunch of other stuff we do, including if you watch on Twitch, we have giveaways every week. In addition to more gameplay streams, Jake plays a lot of games on the Allies. You can see how they perform, usually on Tuesdays and Fridays. So follow, subscribe, get those notifications if you want to tune in.